Hi friends! Today we are covering a comparison mashup featuring the Melt Cosmetics She's in Parties palette with the newly released Natasha Denona Retro. But if it's your first time here, hi! I'm Alicia, thank you so much for clicking on my video. And if you are returning, well, thank you for visiting me again. Kinky Sweat stands for my kinky hair and sweat life. I'm a fitness professional who loves things, all movement and beauty. If you want to check out what I do in between the makeup, so head over to my Instagram. When Retro came out and we took a look at it further, people were still comparing it to She's in Parties, saying this is the expanded version of it. And although I initially agreed, yes, the colors are similar, especially because She's in Parties, I think, has that more gothic Lolita vibe to it. And I think at the time it was Kat Von D. I forgot the brand name already, when she released Lolita, and that was a similar color story. And people saw this and they're like, it's all the same. You know what, fam? I think despite the palettes having similar plummy burgundy shades, I think they are not completely different, but the nuances I feel make that distinction. And this is a biased opinion. I do think Natasha Denona shadows are better than Melt ones. Saying that, however, both brands have different intentions entirely when it comes to formula and the consumer experience, the one that they want us to have, completely different. And I think that dictates the formula. And with that said, when you go into Natasha Denona world, Natasha has always emphasized how she wants the makeup wearer to have a seamless experience with her shadows. Whereas Melt, I'm not too sure on what their goal was in terms of the consumer experience. I think from what I've observed so far is that they're more about the creative experience, perhaps, because Melt shadows are not the easiest to work with. I think this brand is more appropriate for the more indie part of the sector, those who don't mind putting a little extra work in their shadow looks, that tend to spend more time on their eyeshadow than those who would use Natasha Denona shadows. And I know this from speaking to people who are not in the heavy YouTube space, that they're not applying makeup like I am and my colleagues are, that they want a beautiful eye look in minutes. They're not looking to blend all day. All right. And I do think Melt Cosmetic shadows, you're gonna have to spend a little time on them. That's not a bad thing, but expectations, I feel, play a crucial role in deciding which eyeshadows you should go with. With that said, I'm going to first go through some swatches, and timestamps will be down below if you just want to skip over to certain portions of the video. The standout comparison for me is Mean Streak, the deepest shade here in the Melt palette, up against Natasha Denona's Groove, which is her darkest shade in Retro. Now you see that Mean Streak has just a very heavy aubergine look to it, and the swatch is just better than Groove. But I also do think Groove is a different formula altogether. It's not as dry as Melt's powder mattes. It definitely has a smoother consistency, but you see, because this is like a blackened plum, I don't know how much of a distinction you'll see on the eyes when everything has been blended. And let's go in with Rebellion. The cream to powder shadow here from Retro will be much lighter than both Mean Streak and Rebellion, so that definitely has more of a red tone to it. Another shade I wanted to go in is Sleepwalk from She's in Parties, up against Swing from Natasha Denona's Retro. So I'm going to take those two here. Again, we have, I just read it, Sleepwalk from She's in Parties and Swing from Retro. Retro has just a more vibrant plum shade to it, whereas Sleepwalk has a little more red in there. I'm not sure if you can detect that difference, but immediately if you were to combine these shades, I think these will show up much more distinct than if you were to combine these shades once everything's on the eyes. Let's do She's in Parties, which is the more reddish tone purple here. I'm going to put that next to Swing. Beautiful shade, by the way. I do think the shimmers in She's in Parties perform markedly better than other palettes in the Melt Cosmetics category of palettes. I do think She's in Parties outdoes Patty, unfortunately. Patty was the disappointing shade in Retro. It didn't have as much pizzazz, so I would consider this more of a satin shade versus a metallic one. And here is She's in Parties, which has a little more red to it. Last Caress, which is more of this like lavender hue. Lovely shade. Let's put that up against Patty here. And I want to compare this to Andy, which is the lilac cream to powder shade from Retro. And I'm also going to put this up against Nude Mauve, of course, Nude Mauve. All right, so here we have Last Caress from She's in Parties, we have Andy from Retro, and then we have Nude Mauve from Retro. I'm going to do Nude Mauve again just to get a stronger swatch here. So you see this has a little more gray in it, whereas Nude Mauve, not as, I think more neutral. And then we have Lost Control, which is more of a metallic with sparkles in the formula. So I think you have like reddish tone sparkles in here, maybe cranberry tone. And actually, let me pair that with Opart, this one of my most favorite shades from Retro, this cream to powder taupe shade. I'm putting it right next to that one. So you see that the one from She's in Parties has a little more eggplant to it, whereas Opart is exclusively much more taupe in nature. And the other shades in here, which I don't think exist. Oh, you know what? I forgot to do Total Immortal. I'm going to put that up against, Andy. I'm going to do at the bottom here. This is Total Immortal and this is Andy. Total Immortal has more of a pastel look to it, whereas Andy, I think, more lilac. Strange Love is the more like icy lavender shade, which I immediately think about Jude from Retro. So I'm going to grab Jude here. I think Jude is a far better formula than Strange Love. You can see it's a little more crumbly in nature. It doesn't have the same type of opacity and body that Jude does. I'm actually going to swatch Helio from Retro as well. Again, I think a far better formula than what Strange Love has to offer, just better shine and better smoothness overall. And the last shade from She's in Parties is Skeleton Kiss, which is more of a like an opalescent, very light duochrome shade, meaning it has like a light base with that pink flip, and I automatically go to both glitz and psychedelic, the two chroma crystal light shades from Retro. So because the light is hitting them powerfully right now, they're very shiny. So I'm going to move my arm in this way just so you can see the undertones of the shades. Skeleton Kiss doesn't really exist in Retro in terms of that opalescent flip. I think what dominates Retro are the more rosy tones, which I think is the main difference here. And when I did use She's in Parties, which I will again in this video, I found that a lot of the shades lost their identity when blended on the lids, whereas I feel in Retro the nuances are maintained and you just have more of a more prominent grading of color when you combine the shades from Retro versus when you start combining them from She's in Parties. So let's get into it now because I'm so excited. And with that said, why don't you come in a little closer? That's enough. Okay, what should we start with? I think, I don't know. Let's start with Last Caress from She's in Parties to set up the look. Going in with my Refer 27 brush, and Melt Mattes pack quite the punch, so I like to go in very light at first and then build it up from there, and you immediately see just how much one has to offer in terms of pigmentation. And from retro, I'll go in with nude mauve, and I think it wise to maybe switch the brush I'm using. Refer number 15 now with nude mauve, which is not going to have the same color as Last Caress. It will be a lot lighter. Last Caress, nude mauve. Mean Streak, the deep aubergine shade from She's in Parties. I'm gonna be very careful here and just tap that on the outer corner of the lid. I probably should have went in with Total Immortal first, because I feel you don't see like a distinction between the two. Let's do that still though. Total Immortal, the more lavender hue, just lightly here on the edges of Last Caress. Maybe that will bring out a little bit more of the purple. Wiping my reference number 1 and now going in to Groove here from retro, and on the same location but now on this eye, I'm taking it on the outer V. Now you could see the difference immediately. That Groove has it's just more burgundy overall, whereas Mean Streak is like black and plum all the way. And if it weren't for Last Caress or Total Immortal, I don't know if I would have classified that as a plum. Whereas with Groove, I feel you can quickly identify this color as burgundy or maroon, however you want to go. Getting in a little closer, here is She's in Party so far, and here's retro so far. I do prefer the blend from Groove. Melt mattes are funny. Like, some are great and some just, you gotta spend a little time on it. Again, which is fine if you don't mind doing that. If you have the time, if the matte formula aligns with how you apply makeup, then go right ahead. Keeping it very simple, pulling Groove now here on the lower lash line. Mean Streak on this lower lash line. Now in terms of what to apply on the lid, you know what? Let's do She's in Parties, the more like red grape shade, and for that I'll use my finger just to create a little more distinction here with what's going on the outer lid, because I feel if I were to apply Sleepwalk, there'll be no nuance in regards to the gradient that I'm trying to create anyway. But for this side, you know what, I think I'll just go in with Patty. I know people were disappointed in Patty, and I get it, but I feel like a shade like Patty definitely does not exist in She's in Parties. Placing that on the majority of the lid here. And now definitely going in with Skeleton Kiss from She's in Parties, that opalescent flip shade here that has a really nice pink flip to it, I feel, when you apply it on the lid. And here, I think I want to do Glitz. Glitz is the baby pink with the champagne flip, or you know, the other way around, I can never remember. Placing that on the inner corner. I also want to take a little bit of nude mauve on this side because I feel like I need to connect what's going on the inner lid. Lower lash line, you know what? Let's do Sleepwalk, the plummier metallic shade here from She's in Parties. So we applied this shade on the lid and now this shade on the lower lash line, just to give it a little more shine. And now for here, you know what? I'm gonna do Helio. I don't know how you would classify this shade. It's like it's a taupe, but it's more like a rose taupe. It's so gorgeous. All right, let's apply some lashes and I'll be right back. We are back with some chandelier lashes on in the style Ariel. On the lips, Natasha Denona's I Need a Nude lip liner, and Naya with her I Need a Nude lipstick in Amarosa. And here's a look at, again, She's in Parties and retro. Let me know what you think down below. I think that, you know, I like the bruised eye look. I think that's a part of the reason why I adore retro, is in that it gives me more of that sickly eye, you know. It has a possibility in that. Despite the shades being similar, I do feel that retro is giving me a softer sickly eye, whereas She's in Parties, it's just, it has more smoke to it because of the Mean Streak shade. Mean Streak, I believe, and why I think you need to be careful in how you combine these shades in She's in Parties, because Mean Streak can bring the whole look down to smoke, because this Blackened Plum is so intense that anything you combine it with is going to pull it in that same realm. And if you want to have nuance on the lid, like you might have to go in with Strange Love on the lid instead of She's in Parties. But I'm happy we went with this one just so we could have distinction, because Sleepwalk or Lost Control with Mean Streak, you wouldn't be able to tell the differences between the shades. Whereas I think even with Groove has some depth, but it's still a lot more burgundy looking than I feel Mean Streak is. All right, that is round 1. Let's get into round 2. I think maybe we'll do the lighter shades. I have no freaking idea. We'll figure it out. But until then, let's take this off and I'll be right back. Doing Total Immortal first. I think that's a good way to go, because I want to see how this appears on the crease. I actually remember liking it a lot because I was fearful that it would apply dusty and have no type of lavender hue, but it indeed does, as you see. I think a little more pastel leaning than Nude Mauve, the shade from Retro. Nude Mauve I feel is more mauve, but for this side I'll go in with Andy. I think that is the closest equivalent to Total Immortal. The most prominent difference is, of course, the formula. There's no cream to powder formula in the Melt Cosmetics family of things, which is what makes Andy unique, is that it feels like a cream but applies like a powder, and Total Immortal is a traditional powder matte. So here, Total Immortal, Andy I feel has like definitely more lilac. Like I could detect more of a lighter purple hue from this shade. I'm gonna clean up both sides here. Lost Control, maybe? The last shade here is not a matte, but I want to use it to create a little more depth. So let's tap that on here on this side. All right, we got Lost Control. Now I want to go in with Opart, because I do feel both these shades are similar, although I do think Opart leans more taupe and Lost Control is more of like that Blackened Plum. Is within the same realm of Mean Streak, I feel like. Opart is also a cream to powder formula, so it's very easy to work with, glides on the skin. And I'm building it up here in the same fashion that I did Lost Control, primarily on the outer part of the lid. And if I feel that Andy got lost, sounds funny, I'm gonna apply a little more on the edges here just to reintroduce that shade. Applying a little bit more concealer here. There we go. Cleaning that up. I'm gonna do the same here. I do think my Melt eye is not looking as blended as my Natasha Denona eye, probably due to the cream to powder formula, which I think is a lot easier to use than Melt's mattes. I'm going back in because I'm just trying to clean this up and spend more time on it. But again, if you have time constraints, I don't know how well She's in Parties are going to serve you, okay? For the lid, I definitely think Strange Love will be a nice way to go from She's in Parties. I'm using my finger, and this is a very lightweight type of a shimmer. It doesn't have a strong base to it, but I think it has a nice color, and there's like it's a nice sparkle in there too. You just gotta be careful because it spreads pretty quickly. Fixing the inner part of the lid here just to smooth it out. For this side, I think I want to go Jude. Yeah. In the same way, I'm gonna apply it with my finger first. Jude has just better stick. It's smoother, is easier to apply, just more shine than what Strange Love has. I would actually put Strange Love on top of Jude. I think that would be quite fun. But since we're comparing, I'll do that another time. But I think that's what you know, I just realized when I blended a little more matte on the inner corner, Strange Love totally just disappeared again, because this formula, She's in Parties and Sleepwalk, good. Strange Love, we're going back to like the metallics that exist in Gemini and 27 that just don't have any grab at all. You know, you gotta hope for the best when you apply these shades. Or what I do, because I love 27. 27 might not have been as popular as Gemini, but what I should have done on this eye is apply more primer and then go in with the weaker metallic shades. I think that's your best bet if you insist on using this melt formula. And I think I want to go in with a little bit of Vivian. Vivian is this beautiful soft rose color on the inner part of the eye here, just to add a little bit of lightness. And then I'll go in with Mod. This is the like the off-white with pink undertone matte. So I think that's so nice to use from time to time as your standout highlight shade. And we still have Skeleton Kiss is the lightest shade in the She's in Parties palette. So we'll reapply that for this look. Under the eye here, you know what? I think I want to do Go-Go. Go-Go is the more rosy tone shade here. Taking my Hokoro brush. It's a little stiffer than my Chikuhodo one because I want to pick up as much product as I need. Ooh, I like that. Then back in with Opart on the outer edges of the lower lash line to connect top to bottom. So it doesn't have that gap, that it connects well and both shades swim together. And then I'll go in with a fluffier brush here to blur the edges. For this side, I'm thinking maybe Sleepwalk as... Didn't we do that though on the last eye, I feel like? You know what? Let's do She's in Parties, the more red tone metallic for this side. And then Lost Control on the outer part here. All right. Lashes, I'll be right back. Close up from round number 2. We have our She's in Parties eye. And here we have our retro eye. I tried to match up the shades that I thought similar from both palettes. And you'll tell me down below what you think. Again, here's the look. Want to take a still shot? Go ahead. Now from doing these 4 looks, and I already knew this going in, Natasha Denona's formula I think is easier to work with. Is that a bad or good thing? Not necessarily. I think it all depends on your expectations in regards to makeup application, how your technique is, what you like to do, what brushes you like to use. I think that all contributes to you deciding which brand is best for you. This video was just breaking down the color stories and identifying the similarities that people felt strongly that they existed between the two. Yes, these shades are similar, without a doubt. I think if you see them together again, you immediately compare them. I mean, how could you not, right? Because they both have these lavender, I wouldn't say rose from She's in Parties. I think strongly more aubergine, eggplant plum. And in retro, I think what's more dominant and what heavily influences this color story are the burgundies and the roses. And those shades do not exist in She's in Parties. Again, if you see this, it's a lot smokier in nature. And although it has the lighter shades, they lean more lavender in tone, whereas the lighter shades I feel in retro, pinky, light rose, it's just slightly different. If you have both these palettes, maybe use Mean Streak to put in a little bit more intensity in Groove. You could do that too. In terms of consistency and performance, I do think retro is the better palette because I think the mattes are easier to blend. The creamy mattes and the cream to powder formula mattes, the metallics, forget it. Even Patty, being as lackluster as it is, better than some of the metallics here and She's in Parties for sure. And I do think you have a wider variety of looks simply because you're looking at 15 shades from Retro and you're only looking at 8 shades from She's in Party. So that's to be expected. But again, the breadth of shades available in Retro, from burgundy to mauve to rose to even taupe, that speaks to me a lot more than what exists in She's in Parties. And again, that's just a personal preference. That's just how I wanted to go with it. And funny, when people brought up She's in Parties, I even said, like, I wasn't so blown away by She's in Parties. And I said I had to go back in again, which I'm happy that I did, because the shades that I decided to use at that time, I felt, again, they all just kind of muddied up together and they didn't really show it as like this goth Lolita eye that I was expecting. Perhaps now that I did this second demo with Retro, I definitely like it more from the first time, but if I had to choose, I would just use Retro over She's in Parties. I would. And again, yes, that comes from the fact that I do like Natasha Denona shadows more. So that is my bias. Absolutely, unconditionally. I just wanted to show you guys, if you are really wondering, if you have She's in Parties, you don't need Retro. Absolutely. If you feel this speaks more to your color story, more to your aesthetic, if you don't mind dealing with the Mel Cosmetics eyeshadow formula, then great. If you don't have either of these, then you're going to have a lot more variety from Retro. I feel you're going to have an easier time with the blending as well. If you have both, down below, let me know what you think. Have you tried them both? Have you combined them? Have you put them up against each other? What are your observations in regards to the color story, the undertones, and the blending experience? I hope this video helped, fam. I will see you down in the comments, and until then, that is a wrap. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope this video helped, and if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and maybe consider subscribing to my channel. And until then, I will see you on here again with another review tutorial, eyeshadow palette showdown, monthly favorites, or daily vlog. Take care, and I will see you again soon.